In today's video, we're gonna be going over every single card in the Genshin TCG and we're gonna give them a rating. Now you may be thinking, what is this rating based off? I'm glad you asked. Intuition and nothing else. Because, well, the game just came out, and while I'm already an expert at it, for the most part, card game like this will require a lot of time for us to actually determine what is meta, and most importantly, we have to go through tournament in order to determine what is actually competitively viable, which we will be hosting tournament as well as some other things like Kachingming tournament and stuff like that. With that being said, let's get into the video right away. And as always, if you're not subscribed already, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and stuff like that. Let's get started into tier list hot take. We're gonna get started with the support card first because I think it just makes more sense before talking about the character card. Timmy, it costs 0, right? It triggers automatically once per turn where it gains 1 pigeon, and once you have 3 pigeon, it will draw you 1 card and create a Omni dice. My first thought on this card is that it will be a 3 out of 5 card. It'll be an okay card. It basically cycles itself after 3 rounds and generate you 1 additional dice. It's kind of slow since 3 turn is a lot, but it does give you 1 die for free. So overall, it's pretty good for it. Limit allows you to collect your unused elemental dice at the end phase, and when you have 3 elemental dice, it will draw you 2 cards and create you additional. Limit is a 6 out of 5 card. I think this card is the most broken card in the entire TCG. It is just way too good for your econ. It not only draw you 2 cards, which is insane, but it also create 2 Omni die for you, which then you can use for it for anything. It not only fixes your card advantage, but it also generates you die econ. Definitely the most broken card in the entire game. Day Chamber. This card costs 1 white and it will allow you to guarantee to get 2 elemental matching die when you are ruling it. This card is just so much better than all the other die fixing card because it's guaranteed to have 2 matching dice, which is guaranteed to generate your value. So if you're looking for a card that are gonna fixes your die element for your die economy, Day Chamber is one of the go-to cards to pick up. Moving on, we have 7 elemental resonance or representing each element. All of these elemental resonance does the same thing. It creates 1 bonding elemental die. For example, this card here costs 0 and it creates 1 cryo die. Now you have to have at least 2 cryo characters to put the corresponding card in. It's the same for every single card. For the resonance card, I think they are all 4 or 5. They're all really good. Basically, as long as you are including 2 cryo characters into your party, you're probably gonna include this automatically because they just generate you E die, and it's really good for your die economy. Toss up, select any elemental die to reroll and you can reroll up to 2 times. 3 out of 5, I think it is not the greatest. While I was just talking about die economy, the problem with toss up is that even when you reroll, you could just roll into a bad element. For the most part, you really want cards that are guaranteed to generate values. For example, generating a pyro die is guaranteed to generate values since you're playing it in a pyro deck. I haven't lost yet. Only playable when one of your character is defeated, and it will create 1 Omni die, which are die that any element, and your current characters will gain 1 energy. Energy are what required to cast your elemental burst. 4 out of 5. I think energy econ will be one of the most important aspects coming to Genshin TCG, since character elemental burst require you to get energy, so gaining 1 energy. In addition, it also create 1 die. So overall, there's so much value in this card for economy. The only problem is that it's only playable when one of your character is defeated, but assuming that you are going to run into this scenario throughout the game, because, well, if none of your character ever get defeated, you're probably stomping. So assuming that at least one of your characters is gonna get defeated, you will be able to play the card and generate you a lot of value. Knights of the Phonius Library. This is gonna be a 3 out of 5 card. It's a okay die economy card. It costs you 1 white to set it up. However, this is a field card which will last throughout the entire game, and basically it allows you to get a chance to reroll a die for every single turn. This card is a little bit better than Ningguang since it continuously lasts throughout the entire game. But just like Ningguang, you want to be looking for cards that are guaranteed to have values rather than cards that just kind of give you another chance at throwing a die. Non-binary, 2 costs, and when you switch characters, spend 1 elemental die once per round. Essentially, this is just a die economy card, and like always, you're gonna be character a lot. My only problem is, again, it costs 2 to set it up, and it only used once per round rather. So it'll take you 2 rounds to break even, 3 rounds to get value. This is too slow. Hubby, pretty much the same reason, 2 out of 5. Location card, you see a little bit more play, but in order for this card to generate value, it just takes so long because it is once per round, and the first round itself, it doesn't pay itself off because you pay 2 to bank 2. Eileen. It costs 2 when you use a skill that has already been used this round, spend 1 elemental die once per round. 3 out of 5, you can potentially play this in really combo elemental skill deck like the Luke. Once again, it takes a while to pay it off, but I can see the card being seen played than the other one, so there. Hermetic Transformer, it costs you 2 black to set it up, and after either side use skills and do elemental damage, and then by doing that 3 times, you create 3 basic elemental die. So basically, you pay 2 black right now, and after a 3 elemental skill that do elemental damage, which is very easy because it's both sides, you gain 3 die back, which is +1 die compared to before. I think it's a 4 or 5 card because it is just +1 die for a very easy setup condition. It is not as good as other die economy cards that are less setup heavy, but it's still a +1 die economy card, so pretty good. The best traveling companion ever. This is the Paimon, 5 out of 5. It costs you 2 black and it converts you elemental die to omni die. It basically just upgrades 2 of the worst die that you have. So it's really good for a die economy. Big Paimon, 5 out of 5 actually. Both of the Paimon cards are really good, especially Big Paimon. This card costs you 3, but across the next 2 action phase, you get 2 omni die, which is really good because omni die are universal die. And you pay 3 to get 4 die, which is +1 die. And not only you get +1 die, they're all omni die, so they upgrade a die and you get +1 die. Just really good for a die economy. 5 out of 5. Chang, this is basically just a 0 mana draw 2 card. As well, it is very easy to trigger physical damage, piercing damage, or trigger elemental. You expect that since it counts for both sides, it is very easy and very quick to get free inspiration, so it's just a 0 mana draw. 5 out of 5. Moving on, we have Kokomi. Basically costs 1 and you draw a 2 card. One of the most basic card draw in the game. I think it's a 4 or 5. Of course, we have the super broken 0 cost draw 2 card, which are just powerful. And then because you already have card that draw you card to fixes your card economy, I'm not really sure how important it is to include additional card drawing card. I think Strategize is good if you really need card draw after you already include other card drawing card, but probably not a go-to, and so therefore, while it is good to draw 2 cards, 4 out of 5. Lure Harbor, it costs you 2 to set this up, and at the end phase, it draw you 2 cards and you can fight. So basically, this is a 2 cost draw 4. I think 3 out of 5. I think at first, people think this card is really good, but it's just too slow, and I really don't think that much card economy since you already have Lipton and Chang. When it comes down to card advantage, the first card you include are like Lipton and Chang, and then you include Kokomi since Kokomi is a faster card than Lure Harbor is a 1 draw 2 versus Lure Harbor is a 2 draw 4, so they're equivalent. And I just don't really think you need that many card draw in your entire deck, and therefore it is not really a card you play. Sisu, after you switch characters, if the character you switch doesn't have any energy, they will gain 1 and you can use this twice. 4 or 5. I think energy will be one of the most important resources coming into the Genshin TCG. So card that can generate you energy just have so much values. To understand why energy is so important is because in order to gain energy, you have to cast a skill, which costs you like 3 die, maybe 4 die at a time. So card that can cheat out your energy econ will be really strong if you're playing a deck revolving around elemental burst, which will be, to be honest, a lot of them. This will be a 5 out of 5 card. Costs you 1 white and allow you to shift 1 energy from at most 2 of your characters on standby to your active character. I mean, this card is really strong for your energy economy. For the most part, what you want to be doing is cast a elemental skill on one of your characters like Fischls and then deploy Oz, and then you want to switch to your next character so that your next character can reaction. And because of that, some of your character is just gonna have unused energy. Like when you cast a elemental skill on Fischl, it's gonna generate you energy, but you're never really gonna cast the elemental. So this allows you to shift your energy around and gets you elemental burst on the active characters, which is really good for your tempo. Iron Tongue, it costs you 2 black to set it up at the end phase. Follow your character without maximum energy gain 1 energy, and basically it's just 2 black gain 2 energy across 2 end phase. The difference between end phase and round is that multiple end phase happen within the same round. So this is essentially a really good card to just play 2 black to gain 2 energy, which is really good for your energy econ. 5 out of 5 because I think energy is just so busted and allow you to cheat out elemental burst, and because this card is relatively fast compared to the other per round card, it's just I think it's a really OP card. Star Sign costs you 2 black, costs you gain 1 energy. This is gonna be a 3 out of 5 card. Well, I think energy is important. This card is kind of slow and costing you kind of a lot for 1 energy compared to the other energy gaining card, so therefore. Moving on, we have Changing Shift. This card allows your next character switch to cost 1 elemental die. For a similar reason, just like all the Resonance card, this card is rather good for your die economy, as it basically generates you 1 die economy by allowing your switch action to cost 1 die, since saving you 1 die, and therefore it's better for your die economy. So for the most part, you see 4 out of 5. Leave it to me, this will be another 4 out of 5 card. So in Genshin Impact TCG, when it comes down to switching your characters, it actually costs you a combat action, which means you can no longer cast a elemental skill or burst or attack in that turn. Leave it to me basically allow you to not waste a turn switching character instead and allow you to act immediately, which is going to be really important for your tempo, and therefore this is a really good tempo card. When the Crane return, this will be a 3 out of 5. It allows you to cheat out a character switch instead of costing you a turn, so it's a tempo card. The problem is that this card is more restrictive since it only switches to the next character after you cast a skill, and it costs you 1 white versus card like Leave It To Me, it just costs 0 and allow you to switch to any character without restriction. So just get Power Grab. Quickly, choose 1 summon on your side and grant it +1 use. I just don't think giving +1 use to your summon is that important. 3 out of 5 would see play if you're playing a summon deck. Cavalry costs you 2 black. When you switch characters, the switch is considered a fast action instead of combat action once per round. I think this card could basically, it's just a worse Leave It To Me because it's kind of slow. You can generate a lot of value across like 4 for 5 rounds, but again, while the effect is really good, it is only once per round and it costs you 2 build-up, and I think it's just too slow compared to a card like Aventer Bandana. 3 out of 5, I think it's a okay artifact. After you normal attack, it heals self for 1 HP. It doesn't have the most impact, but it's pretty decent. The Doctor's Handkerchief, this will a 2 out of 5. I think this card is just way too slow. It doesn't generate values, so you heal for free HP after your very specific character casts an elemental burst, which take very long to come out since elemental burst costs energy. I think this card is just too slow for too low value. Kind of bad. Gambling Earring. 3 out of 5. After this character defeat a opposing characters, create 2 Omni dice. I mean, this card could be really good in super aggro deck where you're just pushing for a lot of damage. But what you can do is combo off on the turn where you're gonna defeat a characters. You have the Gambling Earring on, and then just set up your die economy really well for your next action to allow you to continuously to push for aggression. Be really good in something like a Luke aggro deck. Lucky Dog Silver Circlet. After this character use an elemental skill, heal self for 2 once per round. I think this card just too slow to generate your enough value since it is only once per card and only after a very specific character uses elemental. Instructor Cap. 5 out of 5. I think this is one of the best artifacts in the entire game. After this character triggered an elemental reaction, create 1 elemental die that matches this character's type max 3 times per round. So you can potentially generate you up to 3 die. Realistically speaking, it will generate you at least 1 die, and if you generate 2 die in 1 round, it break even because it costs you 2 die to play this card, and you can generate 2 die. Really good. One of the best artifacts. Exile Circlet. Another 5 out of 5 artifact actually. It costs 2 black to play, which is basically 2 of any die. After this character uses an elemental burst, all your characters on standby gain 1 energy. Once again, energy is one of the most important resources throughout Genshin TCG, as energy allows you to cast your elemental burst. And so when this card gain you basically 2 energy after you cast a elemental burst, it's just really good for your energy econ since it gain you energy for the other characters. And then maybe you can combo this card with the Klee card that shifts your energy up to instantly cast your elemental burst again. Really powerful. 2 mana Business Rare. When a character uses a skill or equip a talent, spend 1 less crowd die once per turn. Since this card takes 2 mana to pay, you're gonna have to take 2 rounds to pay it off and 3 rounds to generate you any value. I think this card is just too slow and therefore it's not really a card that you play for the most part. 3 out of 5. Weinstein Tricone, another 3 out of 5 card for the same reason of the crowd version, and the same go for the Pyro, Electro, Geo. I think these cards are just too slow since you do cost 2 upfront and you have to pass 2 skill or equip 2 talent to break even. Moving on to the free cost artifact. All of these are very similar Business Rare except for the iconic element. I'm gonna put them at 2 out of 5. Once again, I think they're just too slow. They could be really good if you get them at the beginning of the game, but otherwise it would just be too slow. It's nice to guarantee 2 of your elemental die to be the one, but that doesn't necessarily generate you values, especially considering that there are other elemental flipper cards, and if you really need to, you can just do elemental tuning. I think these cards are just too slow. They cost 3, which is all not that great. Moving on, we have the tier 1 food. For the food part, I think these are 3 out of 5 cards because they are 0 mana food. Chef Mao, 3 out of 5. It's gonna be a card that you might see play in food deck, and again, food deck will involve NRE, which we'll talk about later. But after you play a food event card, it will create 1 random elemental die once per turn. You're guaranteed to be playing food event card if you're playing a food deck, so it just basically generates 1 die economy, which is pretty good. Moving on to the 1 cost food, Lotus Fire Crypts. I think this card is actually one of the better food. During this round, the next time the target character take -3 damage. I think for the most part, you expect a 2 damage reduction with potentially a upside of reducing 3 damage. So therefore, this is just a 1 mana heal 2, potentially 3. And I think it's one of the better food if you want to play a food. Ash Brown, 3 out of 5. It's just a 1 mana heal 2 that's, well, strictly worse than the Flower Crypt since it heals you by Pizza, 3 out of 5. It's a 1 mana heal 3, but it takes 3 turns. So it's just trading off value for tempo. And again, I just think the Flower Crypt is so much better since outclass the other two. Minty Meat Road. The targeted character normal attack costs 1 less die. Actually 4 or 5, since if you're playing a normal attack reliant deck, then this at the very least come out neutral since it costs 1 but it reduces your next normal attack by 1. However, there's potentially upside of reducing it more by 1 because this lasts until the round end. So if you cast more than 1 normal attack before the round end, you could be generating 2 die of values, maybe even 3 die of values. So overall pretty good. It's pretty good food to include if you are focused on like razors, maybe like normal attacking Yomi, something like that. NRE, 4 or 5. This is essentially the food cycling card, and you're gonna want to include this card in every single food deck. What this card do is it costs you 2, and when you first play, it will draw you 1 food. Every time you play food, it will draw you another food. And that's the reason why 0 mana food are so good, because with NRE, they basically cycle itself and you just keep spamming food or food that are just really, really powerful. This is gonna be a must include in every deck, but I just don't think cycling food is gonna be that good because there's so many card draw in the game anyway through something like Libin or Chang, and because the card economy is so good anyway, I don't think it's that good to cycle food for your card economy. Adopts Temptation, so you pay 2 black to do 3 damage in a very specific condition. I think this card is too specific, and while plus 3 damage is good, it costs you 2 black, which is a lot to pay for free. Considering that you only work in a very specific condition, I'll give it a 2 out of 5. But I can see this card being played in something like Elemental Burst spamming deck, where you can potentially generate multiple elemental bursts to gain more value. When it comes down to these character signature cards, I think they are rare. For the most part, I think character signature card around your very specific character that you're playing off are usually a auto include. So I'm probably gonna give most of the character signature card 3 out of 5. The reason of that is because basically for the most part, all of these cards that are character related just cost the same as whatever you were gonna do anyway, because this one automatically casts your elemental skill on Yomiya and it costs 2 pyro, so it doesn't really cost you any additional die to play these cards, but they basically just upgrade your characters. So if you're gonna build a deck revolving around these characters, for the most part these cards are gonna be cards that you include. There are some exceptions which are like officials, which are cards that you probably won't include ever, since for example what the officials card does is that it casts your elemental skills and then it will allow your next normal attack to do +2 electro damage. But realistically speaking, you're never really gonna cast normal attack on official, especially not because it costs you a boss use. So therefore these cards, even though they upgrade your characters, they're not really gonna be C play because the effect is so. So these are like 1 out of 5 card, but for the most part characters constellation card are just 3 out of 5. Master of Weaponry. This is gonna be a 1 out of 5 card. I can't ever see this card being played because, well, weapon is just not the greatest, and switching weapon around doesn't really seem that useful. On top of the fact that you have to remember your characters has to have the same weapon type. This card is too niche. I don't ever see this card being good at 1 out of 5. Blessing of the Divine. This is the same thing as the previous card except for artifact. I don't really see a scenario where you should be actively switching your artifact around. 2 out of 5 is a little bit better than weapons, it's not as niche, but overall I don't really see the card being. To be honest, basically these are banking cards. They cost you 2 to set it up, and they bank 2 mana, and each turn after that you gain 1, and then when you play artifact you play the bank mana instead of whatever mana you have. 2 out of 5, I think this card just too slow. Or in order for you to generate value of this card, you have to play at least 2 artifacts after you play this card, which is not only really slow to generate values, but I just don't think you're gonna be including that many artifacts in your deck anyway. So 2 out of 5. Ragnar, same reason, however for weapon, so therefore 1 out of 5 because weapon is just worse than artifact. Wash You In. This is gonna be a 2 out of 5 card. I mean, this card is just pretty bad. Healing in general is not really something I evaluate a lot. When you pay 2 to heal 4, it's just not really valuable. It's so costly for nothing. The Phoniest Few card. Just like the other card, it's a pretty slow card. Pay 2 to heal 4 because it costs 2 use. Pretty bad card, 2 out of 5. Hu Tao. Choose one summon on the opposite side to destroy it. This is one of the only way to counter summon. I think summon will be really strong, and you can destroy things like Ganyu Elemental Burst. So even though this is a tech card, I think it will be a include for sure if we're in at least a decent summon heavy meta. 4 out of 5. Abyssal Summon. It costs you 2 and you summon Hilichurls. Hilichurls are really bad. They just do 1 damage and at every turn, and their Hilichurls is random. 2 out of 5. Finally, the final non-character signature card, we have Guardian Oath. I think this card is a 2 out of 5. I think this card will not going to see play unless we're super specific heavy summon meta. It costs 4, which is a lot to pay, and destroy all summon, not just on the opponent side, also include on your side. Unless we're in a super specific heavy summon meta and you have to include Guardian Oath, you're never really going to play this card ever. So I just think this card is not great. 2 out of 5 again. Weapon. So these are the 2-cost weapon. All of these do the same thing, do +1 damage. And I think for the most part, all of these weapon are gonna be 3 out of 5. And I think they are okay. Could see a lot of values if you play them at the very beginning of game, since they will just allow everything you do to do +1 damage. But they do have a 2 cost. Sacrificial Weapon series. So all the sac weapon do the same thing. They give you +1 damage, and after a character casts a elemental skills, you will generate you 1 die of the same element, and all of them do the same thing. Sacrificial series, 2 out of 5. I think they're just way too slow unless you cast them at the very beginning of the game. I think they just don't generate you that much value, since again this effect here is once per round, and it will take you 3 rounds to pay it off. And while the +1 damage is kind of nice, it is just too costly. So all the sac weapon are 2 out of 5. And then all the Skyward weapon basically do similar thing. This character do +1 damage. Once per round, the character normal attack do +2 damage. And for the same reason as a sac weapon, it's just too slow. Well, it's nice to do +1 damage. The other effect is just once per round. 2 out of 5. The Aquilian Felonius, too slow. Unless you have this at the very beginning of the game, it just doesn't generate you enough values for 3 costs. Wolf Greystones. 3 out of 5. This is a different weapon. It allows you to +2 additional damage if the target remaining HP is equal 6. It's a pretty good card to be playing in your Diluc deck or aggro. But the thing is, if you're going to play a Diluc aggro deck, I think there are just better cards if you are looking to push for more damage than Wolf Greystones that are just more valuable. So therefore, while you could play Wolf Greystones, I don't think it's better than the other card. 3 out of 5. Moving on, we have the Resonance card. Starting off with the Crowd Resonance. Basically, you can just kind of treat this as an elemental skills because it costs you 1 crowd die and it just gain +2 damage. So this will be a 4 out of 5. I can easily see this being in crowd deck. The Hydra Resonance heal your active character for 2 and also heal your other character. So in total, it heal for 4 HP. I don't really think healing is that important. I think pushing for aggression is going to be a more things to do. So overall, I put this at 3 out of 5 for the Hydra Resonance. Pyro Resonance, 4 out of 5. The next instance of the Pyro reaction, you do gain +3 damage. This will be really good for Pyro aggression reaction deck, maybe with Yomiya or with the Luke. So 4 out of 5. Electro Resonance. One of your character without maximum and gain 1 energy. This card is a 5 out of 5. I think, again, energy econ is just so important. So a card that just give you 1 energy for 1 electro die will be really strong coming into tempo and values. Probably a must include in every Electro Resonance. Anemo Resonance. You switch to a characters and you also create a Omni die. Since this card costs you 1 Anemo die, it basically refund you the die or upgrade your die by converting your Anemo die into Omni die, which is more useful. But you also get a character switch for free. So this card just give you a really quick tempo switch. Overall, I think it's pretty good to play in Anemo deck. 5 out of 5. Steel Resonance. I mean, this card just too specific. Plus shield is not the most important thing. Once again, I evaluate damage more importantly than defensive option because, well, as the old saying go, offense is the best defense. So I don't really see this card being that good. 3 out of 5. Danger Resonance. The next elemental reaction, your active character trigger do +2 damage. Danger Resonance card is okay. The problem is that Danger characters are, well, one of them is not that good. So 3 out of 5 could see play, but I don't really think it's good. Okay, starting off with the characters. Normal attack just do 2 physical damage. Whatever. Elemental skill costs 3, do 3 crowd damage, and finally elemental burst. It costs you 4 crowd die, 2 energy, and it do 1 crowd damage instantly, but it also summon a spinning icicle that allow you to do 2 crowd damage after you use characters for free. So it's basically do 6 damage in total. Kinda is alright, it's kind of mid, so it's 3 out of 5. There isn't any particular special thing about it. Fiona, do 2 normal attack for normal attack, and then elemental skill do 2 crowd damage and generate you a shield that allow you to take 1 less damage twice. so +2, do 2 damage and then minus heal you for. Her elemental burst costs free cryo and free energy. It will deal 1 cryo damage and then heal this character for 2. Also summon her elemental burst that heal your active characters for 2 and do 1 at the end of each phase for twice. So it do crowd damage in total here and heal for 4 in total. Similar to Kaya, it's pretty mid numbers, a pretty mid card, a 3 out of 5. Ganyu is the most broken characters in the entire TCG in my opinion, so it'll be 5 out of 5. The thing about Ganyu is that starting off with her elemental skill, it's like, okay, 3 crowd dice to do 1 crowd damage and summon a crowd lotus that reduce characters damage taken by 1 for 2 times. But her elemental burst is insanely ridiculous. It only costs you 2 energy to cast, which is fast, but it will do 1 crowd damage and 1 piercing damage to the other 2 standby characters. So it does 3 damage in total, 1 across every characters, and it summon her elemental burst. Her elemental burst does the exact same thing, which do 1 crowd damage to the active characters and then 2 piercing damage to the standby characters. So in total, you basically do 9 damage, 3 across the entire enemy, which is really good because then it will allow you to take down the enemy very quickly in a Ganyu Superconduct deck, where Superconduct also allow you to do piercing damage to the entire enemy party. And by playing a Ganyu piercing team, you can take down the entire enemy opponent's characters really fast all together. Not to mention her elemental burst allow you to apply cryo across multiple turns as well, which is super easy to trigger Superconduct. So by playing a Ganyu Superconduct deck, you can just basically wipe all the enemy characters at once. Really good. And then if you somehow get 5 cryo dice, you normally don't expect to get 5 cryo die, but with specific setup card, you could even cast her arrow, which again similar to her elemental burst, but instead it do 2 damage to everything instead. Really one of the most ridiculously overpowered characters. Chongyun. Chongyun is a 3 out of 5, similar to Kaya and Diona. It's just pretty mediocre number, just like other average card. Elemental skill do 3 damage, but also create a field that convert your normal attack to cryo, which is not the most tempo heavy thing because it doesn't have an immediate effect. And then her elemental burst does do 7 damage, but it does cost free energy. Pretty mid characters. Ayaka. Ayaka is actually going to be a 4 out of 5 characters because it does have really incredible damage potential. Looks like other characters, her elemental skill 3 damage, but her elemental burst allow you to do 4 damage and summon her elemental burst, which do 2 damage across 2 turns, which in total does 8 damage. And because this is a summon, it will also apply element across multiple turns. Compare this to Chongyun, which costs free energy to 7. Ayaka's free energy do 8 across multiple turns. It's just really Mona. 3 out of 5 is a pretty mediocre character's elemental skill do 1 hydro damage and summon a reflection, similar to what Ganyu does. Basically reduce your taken by 1. Her elemental burst do 4 hydro damage and create a illusion bubble, which will double the next damage she do. The thing that's really good about Mona is that it does have a potential upside of doubling some really big hit like Chongyun elemental burst in case you doubles that 7 to 14. It's too unrealistic to set it up though, to be honest, because it costs you 2 elemental bursts consecutively in that case, which is just not really possible to set it up like that. So realistically speaking, you're just looking at +3 damage, which is like whatever. Babala. I think Babala is one of the worst characters in the entire game, 2 out of 5. Her entire kit doesn't really do anything. Her elemental skill do 1 hydro damage and summon a loop that heal you for 1, but also apply wet on you, which could potentially save you by allowing the enemy do more damage to yourself. And then her elemental burst is just free energy heal or a character for 4, which is like whatever, 2 out of 5. Ding Chills. 2 out of 5 actually. Unlike the actual game, I don't think he's very here. His elemental skill do 2 hydro damage and it grant you a rain sword. Reduce the damage you take by 1 only when you receive 3 or more damage. So it's just like a worse compared to other characters because there's an additional condition on this. But on top of the fact that it make yourself wet, it's just not very good. And her elemental burst, just like in game, it create the rain sword, and every time you do a normal attack, you can do 2 hydro damage. The problem is most characters don't really want to normal attack, but rather you want to be casting elemental tools. Unless you're playing a normal attack heavy focused deck, I just don't think Xingqiu's is ever gonna see. Ocean Knit. I think this is a really powerful. You can definitely create a Ocean Knit deck. 5 out of 5. Ocean Knit has a really powerful elemental skill and burst. It's basically a setup. The way Ocean Knit work is that your elemental skill will do a summon, which are all pretty okay. They all do different things. Whirl do 2 damage at the end of the turn. The Raptor do 1 damage at the end of the turn. So on average you expect to do damage, something like that. But most importantly, Oceanid is a setup characters where once you cast your free elemental skills, hopefully with free summon on the field, cast your elemental burst, then aside from all the summon effect that you're getting, you can also do 8 damage in total for having free summon. And then if you have more summon than that, damage. I think Oceanid is really strong, especially because you can summon 2 at once if you have 5 die. I mean that if you're playing die setup card, you can accelerate your summon process as well. Just gonna be a really strong card. It's gonna create a own separate deck. Mirror Maiden, 3 out of 5, it pretty mid just like the other one. Elemental skill 3 damage and also refraction that allow you to do +1 hydro damage. Could be a good setup card with Oceanid, but other than that, not particularly strong. Elemental burst is 2 energy, do 5 damage. The Luke is gonna be the go-to aggro card if you want to play fast aggro. 4 out of 5. The way you want to play the Luke is basically just spam elemental skill. You want to do all the setup card that allow you to increase your damage, and the Luke elemental skill across 3 uses is gonna do 11 damage in total, which allow you to one-shot 1 enemy. And after that, you want to cast your elemental burst with 8 damage, which basically almost allow you to kill off the second characters on the enemy team. The Luke is gonna be a really aggro heavy focused characters, and we're gonna be seeing some aggro to Luke. The only problem with the Luke is that even though it is a aggro characters that focus on killing your enemy really fast, he's actually not that fast. So it's a slow aggro deck, which is weird. Bennett, another 4 or 5 characters, elemental skill pretty normal, do 3 power damage. Bennett elemental burst create a inspiration field on top of doing 2 damage, and it only costs 2 energy. This inspiration field is really good because it lasts 2 rounds, not 2 phase but 2 rounds, which means you can potentially get a lot of value out of it by triggering it multiple time. You probably expect to cast 2 to 3 elemental skill per round, which means in general you're looking at 5 use cases of the inspiration, maybe 6 or higher, which is really good. And considering if you use it like 5 times, that's 10 damage plus the 2 damage that you do, which is 12 damage for 2 energy. That's just really strong. Although it does cost you 4 power die. Xiangling. Unfortunately, Xiangling in the TCG cast sucks. 3 out of 5 is basically just a power support for the Luke. Her elemental skill costs 3 power, summon Goba, and Goba to 2 damage per turn. So basically, free power die for 4 damage across 2 turns, which is honestly not that great. And I guess summon is cool, I guess. Her elemental burst is power NATO. It's basically just a power setup there. Yoimiya, 4 out of 5. I think Yoimiya is just really strong as a power setup there, especially compared to Xiangling. Yoimiya elemental skill only costs you 1 power die, and then you have to normal attack on her, and it's kind of like a normal attacking characters. But the way you want to be playing Yoimiya is actually just to cheat out her elemental burst through energy card, because her elemental burst is really it only costs you 2 energy and it does 3 initial power damage. But I create this blaze here that allow you to, for the next 2 rounds, not 2 phases, 2 rounds, it allow you to, whenever a character other than Yoimiya use any elemental skills, it do 1 additional power damage. Now while 1 damage is not a lot, the most important part is that it allows you to do reaction like melt or vaporize really easily. Combine it with something like Ayaka, for example, you could be spamming melt after every single elemental across 2 rounds, and each melt just do +2 damage. So this basically do 3 damage every single time you do any elemental skill. It's really ridiculously powerful, and could be creating some like OTK Yoimiya deck where you just spam elemental skill all in 1 turn and one-shot someone like that. Really strong. Battery Agent, kind of 3 out of 5. Again, it's just like the other characters, kind of mid. The entire gimmick for Agent is just the stealth mechanics, because it increases your damage stealth by 1 and reduce your damage taken by 1. So it's just mid number. The number itself is just mid, just like all the other mid characters, like 3 damage. Visual will be another 5 out of 5 characters. The most important part is her elemental skill is really easy to cast and it's summon. Visual's elemental skill do 1 electro damage and then summon Oz, which just help you set up really good electro reaction. And her elemental burst, just like Ganyu, it does damage to the entire team. Does 4 electro damage to the active characters and then 2 all the opposing characters. So the way you want to be playing Visuals is that you want to pair her with Ganyu to trigger Super Conduct. And of course, again, Oz is a summon just like Ganyu elemental burst. It allows you to trigger Super Conduct consistently across action phases, but most importantly, Visual's elemental burst, just like Ganyu, hit the entire enemy team. So it allows you to draft super strong Super Conduct team with Ganyu. Together, you can basically kill off the entire enemy team at once. Razor, 3 out of 5 characters, just like other 3 out of 5 characters. It's a pretty mid characters. Again, it's a normal attack heavy focus characters, but the number just mid, because well, every character just spend free element to do free damage. Keqing. Keqing could be a 4 out of 5 characters. Similar to Fischl's, it's a little worse than Fischl's because it doesn't have a summon, but basically Keqing have really good things going for her. First of all, her elemental skill not only do free damage, but it also add this lightning thing to you, and basically just give you a additional upside on your elemental skill other than doing free damage. It allows you to do a quick switch without costing you a lot, and her elemental burst, just like Fischl, damage to the entire enemy team. So you can potentially draft something like Ganyu, Fischl's together with Keqing to get Electro Resonance, and then you just do a team that just hit the entire enemy at once. Sino, 4 out of 5 actually. I think this Sino is pretty good. Elemental Burst is really interesting. It only costs you 2 energy. It has a really long lasting value effect or damage initially, and it increases your passive by 2. And basically the way Sino passive works is that at the end of each phase, you gain +1 level, and at 4, you do +2 damage, and at 6 you reset to +4. So the way you kind of want it to work is that you can actually use Sino Elemental Burst to avoid the negative of +6. So basically what you do is when you hit 6, this will bring you back to 2, and then you immediately cast Sino Elemental Burst to bring you back self to 4. And basically just it allows you to hover around the 4 to 5 zone to get +2 damage on all your things. Because of that, Sino will just above average and therefore end up being a 4 or 5. And you can, just like Ayaka, you can draft some interesting like Sino Yoimiya OTK deck where you just do a setup, get your Sino to +4, get your Yoimiya Elemental Burst, and then you just trigger Overload to do another 2 damage, so it will become 7 damage per elemental skill, aside from messing up your enemy's setup. So pretty good. Sucrose, 3 out of 5, and again a pretty mid character. It forces the enemy to switch to a different character, which could be a good disruptive effect and disrupting the enemy tempo a little bit. But other than that, Sucrose doesn't really do a lot. Dean, just like Sucrose, basically the same as Sucrose, and there are 3 out of 5 characters. Our Elemental Burst is kind of interesting. It's a healing Elemental Burst. It costs you free energy, heal all your characters initially for 2, and then summon a Dandelion that do 2 damage each end phase and restore 1 to your active character. So restore 2 in total and 4 damage here. In total, it restores you 8 and also do 2 damage, which is pretty good. But most important use of Jean is to draft it with Maku Genki to do double Anemo deck, because Maku Genki will be another super strong character that you want to play around. Maku Genki is a 5 out of 5 characters, which is, well, you can see it's really confusing. The way we want to do Maku Genki is basically like a control deck. Maku Genki, you want to summon both the Anemo summon and the Crowd summon, and then cast your Elemental Burst, proc everything. Maku Genki is a control because it takes time to set up. Your summon do 1 damage, and then it do 1 damage per turn, or 2 turns, which is 3 damage. But the most important thing about Maku Genki is you want to combo it with your Elemental Burst. By summoning both of your thing, and then casting your Elemental Burst, your Elemental Burst can effectively do 10 damage 1 turn, which instantly kill your enemy. Noelle is interesting. Noelle Elemental skill only do 1 geo damage, but it does create you a shield. And Noelle Elemental Burst do 4 damage, but also allow you to convert your normal attack to heal. The most important aspect about this is that it spends 1 less heal die and also gain you +2 damage, which allow you to do +4 damage for 2 black, which is really strong. 4 out of 5, I can easily see a Noelle normal attacking spamming deck, and could be really good proper setup. Ningguang. Unfortunately, Ningguang is going to be a 2 out of 5, just not really good. Her normal attack only do 1 damage, elemental skill do 2 damage only, but it create your J screen, which to be honest is not really, it's pretty mid, but the Noelle Elemental Burst only does 8 damage, but it requires you to have a J screen setup. So it's just a little slower than the other mid characters. Plus, Ningguang is Geo, which suffered the Geo curse of Genshin Impact, so it's not that good. Lavatriols. Lavatriol is going to be a 4 out of 5. The unique thing about Lavatriols is that it starts with 8 HP, but then it comes with a Stone High, which effective 3 HP, so 11 HP. And it's a pretty good tank. And then your Stone Force allows you to do really good burst damage, since it will convert your physical damage to geo damage, and then you can very easily get your Elemental Burst to do 6 geo damage for energy. Finally, we have Collei, which will be another 5 of characters. Collei is a really good Dendro setup. Her Elemental Burst do 2 Dendro energy. It only costs you 2 energy, and most importantly is summon a summon that do 2 Dendro damage per end phase and have 2 uses. And it's just really good Dendro setup, considering that there's only 2 Dendro characters, and it's really good for deck like Quicken. If you want to build it into your characters, you do Quicken setup, then Collei is a must include. Finally, we have the Terra Shroom, the absolute worst character in the entire game. 1 out of 5. The way the Dendro Shroom works is that every time you take or do elemental damage, you gain 1 1 stacks and up to 3 stacks. But the problem is, if you have stacks, then you love it at the end, and it's just super inconsistent to get the payout. Plus, the payout is not even that good. Assuming you have 2 stacks, you just do 6 damage, which is whatever. And then if you have 3 stacks, you do 7 damage, which is still whatever, considering most other elemental bursts do damage within the range of 7-8 anyway. Now, it only costs you 2 energy, which is great. But the problem is, it's so easy for the opponent to just counter this by when you have 2 stacks. They basically just screw you over by attacking you, making you 3 stacks, and then now your elemental burst too. So this is just the worst character in the entire game. And it's just so bad. And honestly, it's a troll character. And that's pretty much it. Once again, I could easily be wrong on a lot of these, and we can revisit to see how many I got based on just intuition. I think it's definitely fun to do it before we start playing the game, so we can kind of guess how good the card is based off intuition, and we can start build crafting based off our intuition. After all, I think that's like 80% of the fun, is to start guessing which card are gonna be great, instead of, well, just having someone else tell you what the great card is, and then, well, you know, copying that. And so with that being said, let me know what you think about each individual card in the comment below. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys all next time.